or lunch as they call it up at the big house. But you won't get the fancy food. And why do you have to go so far? I mean, Sussex, on the English south coast. If it's by the sea you want to be, why not go to Barry or even Swansea? They're not so far on the train. Yes, why so far? She looked around at the gardens, the long terraces of houses, then sideways to the green slopes of the mountains beyond. They'd moved here when she was 9, and she'd had a good late childhood in this house and a happy youth. They'd never had much money, and their house was plain and practical, not like the big house, where she'd worked the last year as a maid. But she'd been lucky in other ways. Until Da had died of emphysema last year. She poked her fingers through her black curls to scratch her head, willing herself not to cry. No, that wouldn't do. Not in front of her bossy big sister. Now she simply needed a change, a chance to see somewhere else. She dropped the basket and leant against the wall of the outside lavatory. I dunno, Caris. It'll only be for a few years, then I'll be back. Who knows, I might bring a nice English husband with me. Well, I won't be speaking in English all the time, just so he can understand. Lily shook her head, gazing into her sister's dark brown eyes, which reflected her own. There was a click. She looked towards the back gate as it opened. Oh no, what are they doing here? She pointed to her older brothers Maurice and Wynne and her older sister Dilys. Did you send for the cavalry? No. Well, maybe. If I can't talk some sense into you, maybe they can. Lily groaned once more. She'd been planning on doing some gardening for Mam while she was out with Auntie Megan, especially on such a warm day. But it looked like she'd be putting on the kettle and listening to the evidence for the prosecution. She let them go in ahead of her, stopping briefly in the yard to pull a hand-tinted postcard from her pocket. It was the one that Mrs. Bygrove had sent her when she'd been informed that she had the job. The picture was of a large hotel. It looked almost Gothic, with its selection of smaller and larger gables with pointed roofs, long chimneys, and numerous windows. Let her siblings have their say. She was going to her new job at the splendid beach hotel in Littlehampton, whatever they said. Chapter 1. Littlehampton, Sussex, 25th of August, 1915. Lili Probert stood at the dark oak desk in the foyer of the beach hotel, peeking through the double doors to the sunny exterior. She could have sat on the stool provided, since there was no one around, but she chose not to, feeling important in her latest temporary role as desk clerk. She looked around the elegant room with its cream walls, marble floor, and crystal chandelier, sighing with satisfaction. Normally she served meals in the dining room or drinks in the conservatory for morning coffee and afternoon tea. Even that had only been a recent development, since so many men at the hotel had enlisted in the army. Originally she'd been a chambermaid and had expected to be so for the rest of her days, or at least until she got married. Norman. She sighed long and noisily. The possibility of marriage seemed much closer now than when she'd lived in Wales, or when she'd first arrived at the hotel. Or had done. He had enlisted in the army back in February and had been sent to the Western Front a month ago. That nagging worry overwhelmed her once more. What's up with you? Gertie Green stopped in front of her at the desk, her fingers lodged down the raised collar of the portress's jacket that frequently made her neck itch. She, likewise, was replacing the enlisted men. Got a face on you? Not wanting to admit she was thinking about her sweetheart, she said,